In the neon glow heart of New Sanera, a metropolis that stretched toward the stars, Alistair Madson found himself far from his familiar world of billion-dollar boardrooms and high-tech innovations. The towering, shimmering skyscraper of Rhee's newest luxury high-rise had just opened its rooftop café, boasting a stunning view of distant asteroid fields and swirling nebulae, a paradise for those who could afford to sip on milk teas while watching the cosmos unfold. Alistair, a multi-billionaire and philanthropist, had heard whispers about this place, where beings from across the galaxy mingled. Intrigued, he decided to step outside his high-powered bubble to observe life among the stars. As he walked through the bustling terrace, the chatter of 1,000 different species surrounded him. Alien faces of every shape, size, and color filled the space, each as distinct as the worlds they came from. But amidst the clamor, Alistair's attention was drawn to a small, hushed commotion. Several patrons, some humanoid, others unrecognizable, whispered and cast furtive glances at an elderly alien woman struggling to stand. Her small, frail form had collapsed near a table, her satchel clutched tightly to her chest. Yet strangely no one was offering help. Without hesitation, Alistair moved toward her. His instincts kicked in, and the voices of concern around him grew muffled as he focused solely on the woman. Ignoring the disapproving stares, he knelt beside her, his gaze softening as he studied her iridescent crystalline scales that shimmered like powdered diamonds. Her violet eyes, ancient, weary yet deep as the cosmos, met his. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked, offering his hand. The elderly alien looked at him, her eyes widening with a flash of surprise, but she hesitated only for a moment. Then, with surprising strength for her fragile appearance, she grasped his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. She was light, almost ethereal, like something woven from stardust. "Thank you, young one," she said, her voice like delicate chimes ringing directly in his mind rather than his ears. "Not at all," Alistair replied, flashing a warm smile. "Let's get you seated." He guided her to an empty chair nearby. Several patrons watched with curiosity, but Alistair paid them no mind. The woman settled into the seat with a soft sigh, adjusting the satchel in her lap as though to reassure herself that its contents were safe. "You have a kind heart," she said, her gaze studying him intently. "It is rare to find one so untouched by the lure of power and wealth." Alistair chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. "I'm afraid you're mistaken. My life is more than a little influenced by both. But that doesn't mean I can't help someone who needs it." The woman's lips curled into a faint smile. "Humility too. Fascinating." A shiver ran down Alistair's spine at the weight of her gaze. It was as though she could see past his polished exterior, straight into the core of him. There was something about her that unsettled him, but also made him feel an undeniable pull to stay. The elderly woman reached into her satchel and withdrew a small, teardrop-shaped crystal, faintly glowing with an inner light. She extended it toward him. "Please," she urged, her eyes unwavering, "take this as a token of my gratitude. It may seem insignificant, but it is a rare thing. One day you may find it helpful." Alistair hesitated, but there was something in her gaze, compelling, magnetic, that made him accept. "You don't have to," he began, but she pressed the crystal into his palm. "Please," she repeated, her voice warm but firm. With a final nod, he pocketed the crystal, feeling a faint warmth radiating from it. "Thank you," he murmured. The woman inclined her head. "You have done a great kindness to me, young Alistair Madson." Alistair blinked in surprise. "How do you know my—" Before he could finish the question, the woman rose with a sudden, graceful fluidity, as if some hidden strength had surged through her. She looked at him then with a regal intensity, her violet eyes twinkling with ancient wisdom and mischievous energy. "Perhaps one day you will realize whom you have aided," she said, her voice rich with knowing. "For now, remember, kindness is never forgotten." And with that, she turned, weaving through the crowd with a grace that belied her age. Alistair watched her go, bewildered. It wasn't until he noticed the wide-eyed expressions of nearby patrons that he realized something was off. A young Velen woman, her skin a deep, metallic blue, was staring at him, her eyes round with disbelief. Do you know who that was?" the Velen whispered, voice barely audible. Alistair glanced toward where the woman had disappeared, his thoughts still fogged. "Just an elderly lady, right?" The Velen woman's face went slack as if he had just claimed the impossible. "That was Sio," she breathed. "The emissary of the stars. She is known across the galaxies as one of the oldest beings in the known universe. Some say she is a goddess, though perhaps not in the way you would think." Alistair's pulse quickened, but he kept his composure. "A goddess?" he murmured, glancing down at the still warm crystal in his pocket. I just thought she needed help. The Velen woman's expression softened into a smile. She did. And she never forgets those who show her kindness. In the weeks that followed, Alistair found himself returning to the crystal, holding it as it glowed softly in his palm. Whenever he felt uncertain or overwhelmed, it would fill him with a deep, inexplicable calm. He never forgot the encounter. Then one evening everything changed. His security chief burst into his office, her face grim. Sir, an unknown fleet has appeared in orbit, she reported. They're demanding an audience with you. Alistair's mind immediately flashed to Scio. But before he could ask for more details, his office doors slid open to reveal a shimmering, translucent figure. The figure's eyes, those same ancient violet eyes, locked onto his with a profound, knowing gaze. You aided me in a moment of need, Alistair Madson. The voice resonated through his very being, ethereal and all-encompassing. And now I return the favor. I've spoken to the fleet. They come in peace, seeking wisdom. I have told them that you are a friend of the Emissary of the Stars. Just like that, the threat dissipated. The fleet departed peacefully, and Alistair was left standing, still clutching the glowing crystal in his hand. He stared at it, feeling a deep sense of awe. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness ripple through the cosmos in ways one can never anticipate. Weeks had passed since Alistair Madson's encounter with Scio, the mysterious Emissary of the Stars. Despite the surreal nature of their meeting, the memory of her words, and the glowing crystal she had given him, haunted him. The fleet that had once posed a threat to his empire had left in peace, but something had shifted within Alistair. He could feel it, a quiet pull beneath the surface, like an invisible thread pulling him toward an unknown future. The crystal had become his constant companion, resting in his pocket or on his desk, always warm to the touch, like a silent reminder of that extraordinary moment. He had tried to shake off the odd feeling that something much larger than a simple act of kindness had transpired, but every time he looked at the crystal, he felt a flicker of something beyond the ordinary. Power, wisdom, or maybe something deeper. A sense that his life, already vast and influential, was now part of something far greater. One evening, as Alistair sat in his high-rise office overlooking the city of New Sanera, the usual hum of the metropolis felt distant, almost insignificant. The neon glow outside reflected off the sleek glass windows, yet his attention was fixed on the soft, steady glow of the crystal on his desk. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime, his secure communication system blinking with an encrypted message. The name flashing across the screen made his breath catch. Emissary Scio. He immediately accessed the message. A holographic image flickered to life in front of him. The same ethereal figure he had seen weeks ago appeared, though this time there was something new, a sense of urgency in her ancient violet eyes. Alistair, her voice echoed in the room, smooth and resonant. I hope you are well. I come to you not only as the Emissary of the Stars but as someone who has seen the pattern of your future unfold. A greater test awaits, one that will require more than your wealth or intellect. Alistair's heart skipped. What kind of test? Scio's gaze seemed to pierce through him, her eyes filled with ancient understanding. The universe has been shifting. Unseen forces, long dormant, are awakening. There are those who seek to upset the balance, to reclaim lost powers, and their reach extends beyond your planet. I have seen these forces and I know they will come for you, whether you're ready or not. Alistair stood up, his mind racing. Who are they? What do you mean, come for me? Scio's image flickered as if she were choosing her words carefully. The ones who seek power are known as the Shattered Dynasty. They were once rulers of many worlds, but their empire fractured millennia ago. Their hunger for control has not died. They believe you possess something they need, something tied to your family's legacy, something that has been hidden in plain sight. The crystal you hold is a key, but only you can unlock its true potential. Alistair felt a shiver crawl down his spine. The crystal. Of course. He had always known it was special, but now, it felt like the centerpiece of something monumental, something he wasn't prepared for. You will be approached soon, Alistair, Scio continued. When the time comes, trust in the kindness you have shown. It will be the one thing that guides you through the coming storm. And remember, you are not alone. Others will join your path, drawn to the light of your actions. The hologram began to fade, but before it disappeared completely, Scio's words lingered. Trust in your heart, young one. It will lead you to what you seek. Alistair stared at the now empty air in front of him. His heart was racing and his mind buzzed with questions. The Shattered Dynasty? Okay. Hidden powers? Before he could process more, the sound of his door opening startled him. He turned quickly to find his security chief, Zara Valen, standing in the doorway, her face pale and serious. "Sir, there's been a development," Zara said, her voice low. "An unknown ship has just entered the system. It's unlike anything we've ever seen, massive, and it's broadcasting a message specifically for you." Alistair's thoughts raced. He glanced back at the crystal on his desk, its faint glow pulsing with an energy he couldn't quite understand. "It's happening," he muttered under his breath. Zara frowned, stepping closer. "You don't look surprised, sir. Do you know what this is about?" He didn't answer her immediately. Instead, he reached for the crystal, holding it between his fingers. The warmth surged through him again as if the stone were alive, as if it recognized the tension in the air. "I think I do," he said finally, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in his head. "Prepare for a meeting. I'll be down in a few minutes." Zara's eyes narrowed. "A meeting? With the ship?" Alistair nodded. "Yes. And we may not have much time." Zara hesitated, clearly uneasy, but then nodded and stepped out of the office. As soon as she left, Alistair moved quickly, his mind focused on the task at hand. He had learned how to control his surroundings with wealth and influence, but now it seemed the universe had other plans for him. In the elevator on his way down to the lobby, Alistair couldn't help but reflect on Sayo's words. "Trust in your heart. You are not alone." He felt the weight of the crystal in his pocket, and for the first time in years, he felt unsure of what was to come. But there was also a sense of anticipation. Something had been set into motion that he couldn't ignore. As the elevator doors opened to the grand lobby, he found himself face to face with a tall, imposing figure. A representative from the Shattered Dynasty, he realized with a start. The figure wore a sleek, dark cloak, their features obscured by a shimmering holographic veil. Alistair Madson, the figure's voice was cold, echoing with authority. "We come for the key. You have something we desire." Alistair straightened, the glow of the crystal in his pocket now a constant presence. He didn't know exactly what this was all leading to, but one thing was clear. This moment would change everything. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice firm. "But if you want something from me, you'll have to prove you're worth my time." The figure tilted their head, a dangerous smile spreading beneath the veil. "You will come to understand, Mr. Madson. You will come to understand everything. The Shattered Dynasty does not wait forever." The message was clear. The storm had arrived. And Alistair was no longer just a businessman. He was a player in a game much larger than he had ever imagined. The cloaked figure's voice echoed in Alistair's mind long after they had departed. "The Shattered Dynasty does not wait forever." The words were a threat but also a promise. A promise that whatever was about to happen, it would change everything. Alistair sat in his office, staring at the holographic screen where the image of the cloaked emissary had vanished. His fingers drummed nervously on the surface of his desk. The quiet hum of the city below seemed distant, as though his world had been shifted out of alignment. He pulled the glowing crystal from his pocket, feeling the familiar warmth flow through his hand. It was as though it was reacting to the energy in the room. The crystal's faint light pulsed, synchronizing with the frantic beat of his heart. "What do they want with you?" Alistair had never believed in fate. He had always prided himself on building his empire from the ground up, using his intellect, his resources, and most importantly, his drive. But now, faced with forces he couldn't understand, he realized that the crystal, the mysterious fleet, and even Sayo, there was something grander at play. And he was stuck in the middle of it. Zara's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, they're demanding we send a representative to meet them in the central square. They've set up some sort of platform. They claim they'll wait for you." Alistair stood, pocketing the crystal and straightening his tie. "I'm going," he said, his voice more steady than he felt. When Alistair arrived at Central Square, the enormous platform was already in place. It gleamed under the neon lights, a massive structure that seemed to defy gravity, hovering several meters above the ground. The Shattered Dynasty ship loomed in the distance, an intimidating silhouette against the starry sky. Its hull was covered in ancient runes, glowing faintly in a blue hue, but the ship itself was still eerily silent. Alistair felt a knot of tension form in his stomach as he approached the platform. Zara walked beside him, her hand resting on the sidearm holstered at her waist. They were surrounded by a crowd, curious onlookers who had gathered to witness the strange event. Alistair felt the eyes of the crowd on him, but his focus was entirely on the platform ahead. It was as if the world had fallen away, leaving only him and the growing weight of the unknown. When Alistair stepped onto the platform, the figure that had approached him earlier, tall, cloaked, their features hidden, was already waiting for him, flanked by several armored guards. Their presence was imposing, but the figure's voice was calm, almost serene. "You've come," the figure said, their voice rich with an ancient authority. "Good. We can begin." "I don't know what you want, but I'm not giving you anything," Alistair said, trying to steady his voice. The figure tilted their head, and for the first time, Alistair could see their eyes beneath the cloak, a deep, piercing red that glowed with a terrifying intensity. "You misunderstand. We do not take what is yours. We only seek the key." The cloaked figure raised their hand, and the platform hummed to life, sending a pulse of energy through the air. Alistair felt the power of the crystal in his pocket flare to life in response, as though it were recognizing something it had once known. "You hold the key to an ancient power," the figure continued. "A power that can restore the Shattered Dynasty. You are its rightful heir, Alistair Madson." Alistair's heart stuttered. He felt a cold sweat break out across his forehead. "Heir? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a businessman. I've built my life from the ground up." The figure stepped closer, their presence like a storm cloud gathering in the distance. "Your family's bloodline, your ancestor's name is etched in the ruins of lost worlds. The Madsons are the last living link to the original rulers of this galaxy. The power you hold was never meant for the weak. You must embrace your legacy." Alistair recoiled, a flash of disbelief rushing through him. His mind spun with confusion and fear. "A ruler? Me?" The crystal in his pocket grew warmer still, as if urging him to listen, to believe. He glanced down at the small object, its faint glow casting a soft light on his hand. "Take it," the figure demanded, their voice hardening. "Give us the key or we will take it from you." A sharp pressure built in Alistair's chest. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, and Zara's hand tightened on her sidearm, clearly ready to act. But Alistair's eyes remained on the figure, who was now standing right in front of him, their presence overwhelming. He had two choices. He could surrender the crystal and appease these ancient, powerful beings, preserving his empire in the short term, but at what cost? Or he could stand firm, reject their demands, and risk everything. The power he held in his hand, the key to this unknown legacy, could be the downfall of entire civilizations, or it could be the salvation of everything he knew. As the pressure mounted, Alistair felt something shift within him. The warmth of the crystal no longer felt threatening. It was guiding him, filling him with a sense of clarity he had never known before. He understood, in that moment, that the crystal wasn't just a piece of ancient technology, it was a test. A choice. "I don't want your empire," Alistair said, his voice firm, his resolve steeled. "I don't want to rule. I built my life the way I want it. I've earned my place, but not at the cost of others." The figure's eyes narrowed, and a low growl rumbled from the depths of their chest. "You have no idea what you're denying. You do not understand the gravity of your decision." "I understand perfectly," Alistair replied, his voice unwavering. "You want control. But I'm not your puppet." Alistair stepped back, his hand clasping the crystal tightly. He felt it pulse once more, a wave of energy emanating from the small stone. And then with a sharp motion he threw it into the air. The crystal spun and hovered before him, glowing brighter with each passing second. The Shattered Dynasty's emissary took a step forward, but the crystal pulsed one last time, releasing a blinding light. The platform beneath their feet trembled as the light enveloped the figure, and with a sudden deafening blast, the cloaked emissary was thrown backward, crashing to the ground. A silence fell over the crowd, stunned by the sudden turn of events. The crystal, now glowing with a steady, bright light, dropped back into Alistair's hand. The weight of the decision was on him, and for the first time he realized what it truly meant. He had chosen. And the universe would never be the same. Alistair turned to Zara. "Prepare the ship. We're leaving New Sanera. There's something I need to understand." Zara blinked, confused but resolute. "Where are we going, sir?" Alistair smiled faintly, his eyes locked on the horizon. "Wherever the crystal takes me." And with that, he stepped off the platform, leaving the Shattered Dynasty behind, and venturing into the unknown. The ripple effect had begun.